First of all, thank you for meeting with me. I really
Delighted.
am appreciative. I have some questions. I'm going to try to stump you. I'm going to try to give you questions that you really have to think about that everybody
Okay.
doesn't ask.
But speak it slowly, because I don't hear well.
Okay. The first one is, how do we get to the truth? How do we, with all the media and manipulation, how do you think we get to the truth?
We work hard. It's not quantum physics.
Mm.
It's not really that hard.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot of noise out there.
Right.
But if you think about it and you evaluate what's being said and you look at the sources and you consider the credibility of the people, you can work through it.
Mm.
It's, some effort, but there are many harder tasks in life.
Mm.
In fact, almost everybody's own job is a harder task in life.
Right. Okay. Is there anything that you haven't been asked that you would hope that somebody would ask that you want to expound on? I know they ask you a lot of things, but you hear the same questions. Was there any question you say, well, wow, I wish somebody would ask me this so I can expound on it?
Well, I have a lot of questions I wish I knew the answer to.
Okay.
Like, I wish somebody could explain to me the mentality of decent, honest human beings. I'm not asking about Henry Kissinger. I'm not asking about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Just a manager, normal, decent person in a bank or an energy corporation who's devoting, or a newspaper for that matter, who's writing about it, who describe or either carry out or describe the new programs to increase fossil fuels. The people who do it, the bankers who fund it, the energy corporations that do it, the newspaper reporters who report it, all happily with a sense of euphoria. It's increasing economic growth. It's catapulting the United States into the lead in producing energy around the world. Every single one of them knows perfectly well exactly what you and I know, that they are driving the world towards imminent disaster. How do they put this together in their heads? How can you, say, take Jamie Dimon, head of J.P. Morgan Chase? I don't know him, but I assume he's a perfectly nice guy. Pouring money into fossil fuel extraction, including the most dangerous, like Canadian tar sands. When he goes home, he probably sends a check to the Sierra Club. He knows what's going on in people's heads when they do this. What's going on in the heads of a reporter, a very good reporter for major newspapers, New York Times, Financial Times, when they describe all this, write about it, long articles. Occasionally, maybe there may be a word about the fact that the effect of fracking in Wyoming will harm cattle ranchers and something like that. Not a word about the fact, which they know very well, that that what they're doing is calling for a death knell for the species. It's not just some harm that people have. It's the end.
Right.
What goes on in people's heads? Maybe you can answer.
I don't know. I don't know how they sleep at night.
There was
That's a
an
difficult
interesting statement about it recently, not exactly this, by William Perry, who was the former defense secretary, a guy who spent all his life on nuclear issues, pretty conservative guy, not given to exaggeration. He said he was doubly terrified by the growing threat of nuclear war, secondly by the fact that nobody's paying attention to it. But he should have added something else. He should be triply terrified. The people who are racing towards nuclear war know exactly what they're doing. That's just like the climate issue. When Trump's advisors who tell him to destroy the INF treaty a couple of weeks ago, and to launch immediately test missiles that violate the treaty. They know exactly what they're doing. They're telling the Russians and the Chinese and anybody else who may be listening, please go ahead and develop more advanced destructive missiles which will destroy us. Okay?
Yeah.
When they say we're not going to sign the New START treaty, which is the last of the regime of arms control, they know they're telling the world, fine, let's produce anything we like that can destroy all of us, hypersonic missiles against which there's no defense, let's blow up the world, destroy ourselves. They know it. What's going on in their heads? They're not crazy people.
And they have children. So I would
In
think
fact,
that they would...
I'll tell you something that reminds me. I once, a friend, he died recently, he's an atomic physicist who was at, nuclear physicist who was at Los Alamos, with the scientists who were setting up the atom bomb.
Right.
It was the most brilliant people in the world, not just technically. They were people steeped in a humanistic tradition, European scientists, very educated, read poetry, all sorts of things.
Right.
They were stuck together, separated from the rest of the world, talking to each other, knew everything that was going on. You couldn't find a more wonderful group of people. I asked him in a discussion. He was actually the guy who put the bomb together. This guy.
Wow.
What were they discussing about the effect of building an atom bomb? Germany was out of the war. No war against Germany anymore. Didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Japan was being wiped out by just massive firebombing. Tokyo was one of the bombings. It killed about 100,000 people, wiped it out.
Right.
What do they think? What were they talking about? What's going to happen here? He said they never discussed it.
Really?
They were much more involved in the technical issue of can we get this thing to work. I mean, at one point, it was July 1945, they wanted to carry out a test to see if something was going to work. They knew that there was a possibility, a very small possibility, that it might set the Earth's atmosphere on fire and destroy everything on Earth. But they, they gave it to Hans Bethe, one of the top scientists. He calculated that the probability was extremely low, and others verified the calculation. It's extremely low, and they went ahead and did it.
Wow.
I mean, you can't find words to discuss it. I mean, it's not that they had to do it then. They could have waited until technology was better and you had far less risk or no risk or not do it at all for them. But we'll take a chance and maybe the whole world will go on fire.